When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Now, of course, this is the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. When people say, hey, why are you an American? Well, there's three main founding documents. You got the U.S. Constitution, and you got the Bill of Rights, and you got the Declaration of Independence. Why are we Americans? Well, for one thing, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So, America, I don't know who needs to hear this, so, stop me if you've heard any of this. But I'm assuming a bunch of illiterate American dumb fucks haven't heard this, so to the very least, here is your Declaration of Independence, America, to all the stupid, dumbass, backwards, illiterate American dipshits. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter, to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present king of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states, over these United States of America. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden. This is King fucking Dickhead III. He's forbidden. King, not George. King George III has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people, he has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has Queen George has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriation of lands. Let's read that again. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners. So we're mad that he's not letting immigrants into the country. He has obstructed the administration of justice, refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payments of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in tunes of peace, stand in armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent and superior to the civil power. What? George is doing what? George is trying to take the military and make it more powerful than the civil authority. The military can't be more powerful than the civil authority. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution. We didn't have a Constitution. He's talking about our inner Constitution. As Americans, we got an inner Constitution. And unacknowledged by our laws, given his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. A kangaroo court. His judges and courts are kangaroo courts, are fake. The king's men, the cops, get to do whatever crimes they want to do, and then anybody and everybody else who gets accused for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of a trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries, so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations. Don't you usurpate me. Your Honor, he was usurpating me. Officer, arrest that man. He accosted me and usurpated me, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God, is it not? We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in all caps, the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states we have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all the other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Amen. Amen. So Declaration of Independence, that happened when? July 2nd, 1776. Right around then, right? And then they did the public ceremony on the 4th of July. So America, you know why you celebrate the 4th of July? Because of that document there that I just read. That little document there that I just read actually changed the whole fucking world. The whole fucking world was kind of like, oh shit. You know, the revolution, it's the age of revolution. France is going to be inspired to do a revolution. Haiti's going to be inspired to do a revolution. Back in the 1700s, apparently, Bill of Rights and constitutions and Declaration of Independence, apparently, a bunch of pithy documents was the thing. That was the bee's knees back then. It was a hula hoop. The U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights was the hula hoop of the 1770s. So that's one of your founding documents. I want to just make a couple comments. 1776, Declaration of Independence. You had the Boston Tea Party, and you had the tea and the taxes on the tea and the taxes on the mail. Right? Every time I buy tea, there's a tax. And every time I go send a mail, there's a tax. Don't tread on me. What? 50 cents for a stamp? Don't tread on me. That sounds like a stamp tax to me. Crispus Attucks is going to die at the Boston Massacre. And then you had the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Massacre, Boston Celtics. And then there was that racist shit, right, with the Native Americans. Most Native Americans and black folks actually fought on the British side. And even though Lord Dunmore had his Emancipation Proclamation, you actually think the British Crown would have... Britain is going to actually end slavery in 1808. So they were able to end slavery by, I guess, legislation or parliament. They didn't need a civil war. So, is it possible Great Britain could have ended slavery beforehand? I don't think so. During wartime, they were, throwing anything and everything, whatever they could. And since Lord Dunmore had been pushed out of Virginia, he was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to get your slaves to rebel against you. And then that also, I heard that's the reason why George Washington, jumped in. And then maybe it took, 10 years for George Washington to finally fucking realize what he actually had done. Because we're going to win the U.S. Revolution, 1781. The Battle of Yorktown. We win the battles and then we sign the peace, 1783. But we're under the Articles of Confederation until 1787. So for 4 years, right, just Articles of Confederation, there's a time in American history where there's no presidents. And then somebody was running the damn Continental Congress during the fucking Revolutionary War. So this is before 1787, right? 1776 is the Declaration of Independence. And then 1787 is the U.S. Constitution. Well, that's 11-year difference. We said, okay, we are free. And then it took us at least 11 years to get us our U.S. Constitution. And then it's going to take us another 4 years, 2 to 4 years, until we get, it might be 1788. And then the 1791 is our Bill of Rights. So that's 12 years. We declared our independence. 12 years later, got a Constitution. And then 15 years later, got a Bill of Rights. So you should think about that too. We fought this bloody fucking war. They send us out there like cannon fodder. And look at Shays' Rebellion. Did they really give a shit about we, the working class, or were they just using us as cannon fodder? So I think that's important because we declared our independence. And then 12 years later, Shays' Rebellion is going to happen. So they're like, we need a stronger centralized government. And then we're going to have the U.S. Constitution. And then people are like, wait a second, that's not good enough. We were supposed to get rights and freedoms and shit. You ain't really doing shit for us. Well, how about a Bill of Rights? And it's like, okay, that took 15 years. So the Bill of Rights was the last of the 3 founding documents, and we kind of barely got it. But I think because of the way they set the U.S. Constitution up, they had to run for election, had to run for office. What are you going to promise the people? Promise the people a Bill of Rights. Now you're progressing towards something. You're still promising you're getting the people something. And then it went to the states, and everybody was for the Bill of Rights. It ratified it easily once they wrote the damn things up and put it before the people. Do I want freedom? No! Come on, let's start a big, massive campaign. Come on, let's peacefully assemble. Why? Because we're going to stop freedom and democracy. We're going to stop this damn republic. King George III is in charge. We're not going to listen to no damn presidents. So, yeah, 1776, Declaration of Independence was declared, 13 colonies. I think George Washington grew up a little bit, then got a constitution, and then just his good name. He helped win the war, but then he retires, and then they had to pull him out of retirement to get this U.S. Constitution and basically get America working. Get America working. You're the military fucking dictator. Everybody fucking coalesced around you. Can you do it again? Put your good name and put your good reputation and get this U.S. Constitution and these Bill of Rights. Get them going. Get them codified. And George Washington, at the very end, he's going to free his slaves. Which fucking pisses me off. I remember watching this goddamn movie where the guy was a racist the whole time. And then eventually he was intimate with a person of color. And then all of a sudden he's like, man, we got this all wrong. We should not. Why are we being white supremacists? They're just like us. There's no difference. You guys, so he reformed. The person that was a white supremacist the whole fucking time became the big anti-racist. Like, no shit, Sherlock. You're judging people by the color of their skin. You didn't know that was illogical and stupid? Martin Luther King got assassinated for saying some obvious shit. What did he say? Judge a person by the color, the content of their character, and not the color of their skin. No shit, Sherlock. Last thing I'm going to mention is constitutions. The United Kingdom still doesn't have a constitution today. San Marino has a constitution, 1600. Ireland, even freaking some of the Commonwealth, countries have goddamn constitutions. Cromwell had the instrument of government, but the United Kingdom, Great fucking Britain. How great can a country be if they doesn't even have a constitution? How great can a country be if you've been letting one goddamn family oppress the shit out of the rest of you for fucking generations, decades? So when I think about the fight between George Washington and King George III, still today, even in spite of him being a slave owner and possibly fighting the revolution to protect the fucking institution of slavery because of the Bill of Rights, because of the Constitution, that's a contract that we the people in America have with our government. They might not listen to the contract, but at least it's written down on paper. The only verbal contract that you should agree to is one that's written down. That's a Kentucky proverb. And so the United Kingdom has no constitution. I'd say Germany, Sweden, name a motherfucking country. Norway, France, even Russia has a constitution. Why not England? They Brexited, but they were the weakest link. The weakest link Brexited. We got to get the hell out of here. Why? They're going to make us get a constitution and shit and a Bill of Rights. Didn't you all come up with the Bill of Rights? Yeah, the English Civil War. No, the Charles I, right? Chopped his head off. You got the Bill of Rights. You got the Cromwell's instrument of government. That's the only constitution England's ever had is Cromwell's instrument of government. And then the English Bill of Rights, that's such a fucking powerful Protestant thing. You would think the Protestants would embrace the English Bill of Rights. But it was Parliament saying, hey, you can't do this. You can't have standing armies. We have a right to bear arms to protect ourselves and against you. We have a right to speak. Parliament. So there's a lot of there's only 10 things, so it wasn't comprehensive, and it was mostly for the people of Parliament. But you got an English Bill of Rights that you wrote down. Cromwell has an instrument of government that was written down. And the British were so pissed off at Cromwell because he got them a Bill of Rights, and it was the fucking royalist, that they're gonna fucking pull his bones up and then fucking hang him and then quarter him. And what are you doing? You're kicking a corpse. That makes no sense. That's like impeaching a president after he's left the White House. Can you be any more pointless, any more innocuous? I guess that's the cherry on top. I think it's just the royalists saying, well, since they tarnished our name and reputation, because you can just shoot a person, right, and they would die, but to behead them, I mean, that's really saying something. That's a big message, I think. That's in some respects, it's kind of more, oh man, something must